Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Wild Woman Podcast. I have my first guest from Finland. I love saying this. Last time I had my first guest from Brazil. I feel very international, and she's living in Costa Rica. And I'm so delighted she is joining me today on the podcast. I actually feel that a lot of the themes that are probably going to come up have it been sort of coming up in me in preparation. It's so interesting. I said this on another podcast. It's like these sort of themes and what needs to be discussed almost comes up energetically first. And a beautiful thing. So Veera Korjala is my guest. I'll tell you her name first in case you're wondering. And I'm just going to give you a little introduction to her and a little bit about her bio and her background. But she's a somatic wellness coach, a retreat facilitator, and a yoga and mindfulness teacher. And she is dedicated to guiding others towards embodied self expression and deep healing. She is originally from Finland and spent 7 years in the United States before she made Costa Rica her home since the 2020. And through a unique blend of somatic practices, internal family systems, mindfulness, and energy healing, Vera helps individuals release fears and limitations, reconnect with their authentic self, and courageously cultivate a life of alignment and ease. Even that just makes me feel so good when I read that, even when it lies outside the norm. And I especially like that. As a seasoned retreat leader and ceremonialist, she creates transformative spaces for self discovery, personal growth, and holistic well being. Welcome, Vera. So happy to have you here on the podcast.
Thank you, Celine. Thank you so much. Appreciate you so much. And I'm very excited for our connection. Already what happened before this a couple of minutes ago, like already started to come up. So I'm very excited and curious to see what's coming up through us.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And one thing I was reading, looking at your website just a few days before, and something that's very interesting. You talked as well about creating, excuse me, I have a little bit of a cold, so bear with me, listeners. I'll do my best not to be sneezing throughout. Intentional spaces for women to be seen, heard, and understood. And just to say, and that just really, really, oh, it's in my heart when I read that. The last guest I had, it came up that I was trying to describe really what the podcast is about for me. And I'm not big into labels and limiting it because it's sort of unfolding. But I felt as I sat down with her before we recorded, like with you, that I was going into this very sacred space, or that was my intention, that would be a very sacred space where the guest can feel safe enough to share, to show their true selves. Um, and as we were talking about it, she said to me, Celine, I just pulled a card before we came on air, and it was sacred space. And it was just so lovely. And then I was reading about the work that you do, and it just really it just really landed in my heart. And one other thing just before, it sort of connected to that I wanted to ask you. You said something about when you were very young as a child, all I wanted was to feel seen, heard, and understood. And I was like, well, isn't that all each of us truly want? And when we receive that, we can be our true authentic selves. So thank you for sharing that. And can you talk a little bit about that, please? Because I just think it's very important in the world we're living in now.
Yeah. So many of us are feeling unheard in relationships, not feeling seen, like truly seen, like the deepest parts of ourselves, and not understood what we possibly mean and what we are about. So we actually get wounded in relationships, but the healing also happens in relationships. So that's why I'm very, very big on, like, through my own journey, like I have noticed how important it is for us women to come together and just really witness. It's not about that we are trying to change them or anything, like truly like witnessing. And witnessing is through just somebody being there and just holding the space and being able to, I lead retreats, and many times in those spaces, I'm very big on creating a safe container and confidentiality, like that people can really like, even like energetically, they can feel that, now I can actually just vomit these things out. And in my last retreat, like the welcome circle lasted 2.5 hours, and there was a handful of us only. So it was really like when women finally get into a place where they can feel seen, heard, and understood. Because what I have noticed over the 5 years that I have been doing circles and retreats and intentional spaces, sacred spaces, is that we can all learn from each other and we all go through the same emotions. And it might be a different context, but the feeling is the same. So everybody can resonate with that. And I also always encourage women to share, because many times, and myself also, like I grew up very much that I was not feeling comfortable sharing, expressing. There was no tools. I love my mom and dad and my upbringing, and I have the understanding and the compassion. Like they came with their best ability to guide us, to support us. And yeah, there was not, we were talking about facts, and I grew up in Finland, so it's very logical mind thinking.
Mm.
And especially I played competitive volleyball throughout the whole of my childhood, and throughout the last 6 years that I played competitively, and it got a little toxic towards the end. So I actually retired in my early 20s from volleyball. But we talked about facts and games, and but there was zero emotional intelligence in in where my background. So it's been a long journey to come into this space that I'm now, and I am so grateful. 2018 was the dark night of my soul. um, that's when my health was collapsing. So my coping mechanism, since my mom and dad divorced 2000, not 2000, it was in the 90s, but I was 11. Um, my coping mechanism was health and fitness and nutrition. So there's four of us, and we had different coping mechanisms. And that actually, go figure, I'm in a health and wellness space doing professionally. So it has guided me throughout. And yeah, but now in 2018, I was having autoimmune issues, and I was no longer able to move, and which has been my mental. I noticed that that was like my anchor for my well-being back then, like to take care
Mm.
of myself also mentally, emotionally. But now that I couldn't move the same way anymore, I I was really, really struggling, because I couldn't. I was trying to avoid, first of all, the symptoms, and just eat the same way that I was doing. And obviously, I had leaky gut. There was some food sensitivity, and there was no pattern of all the symptoms that I was having. So it got to a point I was afraid almost to eat. We didn't know what was going on. I was refusing to go more functional nutrition direction, and go figure, from the universe, a gift from the universe. My husband was going through that time a functional nutritionist certification, and he's like, "You are having all of these symptoms. Like, don't you get it?" So eventually, I agreed into doing the lab test, and go figure, I had H. pylori, I had parasites, I had yeast, I had like all kinds of stuff. And yeah, that kind of sparked me into this space that I'm now. So I'm very, very grateful for that, because otherwise I would not have found meditation, journaling, yoga. My yoga already deepened during that time. Um, but that was kind of like the only exercise I could do. Like I had the background in personal training and crew fitness. I was a fitness director on the cruise ships, and I was a competitive volleyball player. So identity depth to the core. I couldn't control anymore. I noticed that I was very much in the toxic masculine energy. And yeah, just fighting against what the universe is like, let's go. And I got kicked out from, I got fired from a yoga place in Dallas, and there was the relationships with the masculine energy in my life was very challenging during that time. Finances were there were struggles with finances. So there was a whole mess going on. And now I can see, like, thank goodness that happened, because it really, really got me into this path that I am today. And the biggest kind of healing that I got after a couple of years, first of all, physically needing to get better, but the emotional, mental, spiritual side of things started to happen more from the somatic work in 2020.
So 2018 is when you were saying when that big shift or breakdown, breakthrough started for you.
Yeah.
And prior to that, so you said you were working as a fitness instructor and, you know, your life, you'd been a volleyball player. It's just so interesting. You know what comes to me when you're saying it? It's like, and I think it was the same for me in a different way through cancer in 2016. It's like all of the coping mechanisms that you have used, you know,
Yeah.
in
They
some
don't
ways
work.
sort of successfully, you know, to get to a certain point are suddenly like, no, we're taking that, we're taking that, we're taking that, you know, all of the outside. And it just sounds like everything, like the fact that it was that which hit you, cancer, I was overworking. Many things. I had lots of unhealthy habits before that as well, and each of them stopped working. So when you were given that sort of, let's say, diagnosis, for want of a better word, did you start then automatic, like you said your husband introduced you and he was doing functional medicine? Did it come easily to you, I suppose, to say, okay, I need to go deeper into this because, you know, we can go different ways when we get news like that?
Great question. I'm starting to laugh because I was definitely so resistant. Like I was the 5-year-old kid, like, oh my God, I cannot eat eggs. Like I cannot, I'm not able to, like, everything. I was in a soul lack mentality. Like, and it came with food, it came with, exercise at that time. And I was just like, I'm not able to have this, and this, but I did not see the opportunity, what was coming from it. So I was very much trying to hold on to the
Mm.
old ways. And yeah, then like I
It's
didn't have
hard, isn't it, though? It's hard. Sorry to interrupt you, but it's hard.
like,
It's like where we are in the world right now. Like it's really that is the choice. And it's like things get louder, don't they?
yeah,
Until
yeah, and
until you
really,
let go.
yeah, and I really needed to um let go of the control. Like that was the big thing. Like, and that was like when we look at from a nervous system perspective, from somatic perspective, like that was really big threat. That was a threat in my body, like this unknown. And even though I knew it was, healthy to eat certain ways, but I had anchored and created this life of 30 years of doing things certain way, and now I need to learn this whole new neural pathways to get there. So eventually, like, it required a lot of mindset shifts. And it's kind of like what I see also through doing this work with others. It's like we first are in the physical, taking care of the physical body, and then the mindset comes in, the mental. And then really what actually shifts is when we get into the deeper realms of the emotional and the spiritual. So I find it like in my head, I'm a very visual person and
Mm.
I've seen energetics. So it's like the outside layer of the circle is the physical, then the mental, then the emotional, and then the spiritual. And the more we can get deeper, the more we can expand in our lives. And the
A
emotional,
beautiful visual. Sorry, that's a lovely visual for people listening. It's really lovely. It's a really lovely way to. I like things visually as well, and it's like analogies. You can just go, "Oh, yeah, that sort of
yeah,
slots in." Thank you.
yeah, I
Sorry
like,
to interrupt you. Just it's really nice.
yeah, I like to say that the dig deeper to fly higher.
Mhm.
So really you can like expand and you can see and you know, you can elevate your life so much. But damn, it's hard. The emotional,
Yeah.
oh my
So
God.
what brought you down into that? So I mean, you're saying you got this, you can't eat certain foods and all of the reaction and resistance to that. So what led you then from there to go on that deep
Yeah,
dive?
yeah, that's a great question. So in when I hired my somatic coach, that is when things started to open up for me, that how much trauma I was still holding in my body and in my nervous system, the challenges that I had gone through. And through that work, I actually understood the the level of intensity and the magnitude that my mom's and dad's divorce was for my body and for my psyche, and for like that obviously played a role in my own relationship with my loving husband, that in what was demonstrated to me in um, my mom's and dad's unionship was that the feminine was quiet and the male could be vocal. And my mom, this is my lived experience. So my siblings can have a completely different idea. I actually just had a conversation with my dad when I was in Finland around like what was his experience of like it's so nice to bring this thing up that was not communicated during that time, and especially with that level of consciousness and the mind of an 11-year-old teenager years. So where was I with that?
About you
Something,
going your deeper dive into, so I suppose, unpeeling all the emotional through your somatic coach, wasn't it? You were saying,
and
yeah.
then it was playing a role with me and my partner. And the feminine only spoke up when the feminine spoke up, the man left. So when my mom actually started talking and communicating, then the male left. So for me, for my nervous system, for my psyche, I took it in. It is not safe for me to express. It's not safe for me to express in this relationship because otherwise the man will leave. And
Mm.
so that was in the root of things. And I was able to get into that through the somatic work, which is very much connecting with your emotional body, which is typically cut. I'm showing here, if you're listening,
Yeah, yeah. I think we all know. Yeah,
cut from the
yeah.
throat.
Living life from the head up. I think I learned that it doesn't work. You can
And
really,
then also when it's cut from the throat, it's like then
yes.
definitely have expression issues. And from the chakra point of view, your fifth chakra is communication, the truth, the expression, and it's also the combination of all the lower chakras. So for you to
Mm.
express it out. So yeah, it was completely shut down, and I was very much so somatics is very much like your lived experience still living inside of you, the traumas or challenges or hardships that you have gone through. Many women that I serve, I see a lot of grief that they are still holding on to, and it's this tightness in the chest. A lot of women have anxiety. So it's like this knot in the belly, and then it says heart rate starts to raise, and the mind starts to raise, and
Mm.
so forth. And for me, it was a big, big grief, and as well, and just the sadness around. And many times when we go to shadow work, when we pull things from the unconscious to the conscious to the light, it requires, there's a certain kind of grief, because the self-realization process that we are all on the healing path, and I'm sure all the listeners are in some sort. If you have found this podcast, this beautiful podcast, like it's very much you are on the healing path and trying to understand why you are the way you are. It's not easy, it's messy, and when we realize like, oh my God, like I have been believing or I have been acting the certain way all of these times just for this for this certain thing. And I give you an example of that. So my family, and it's interesting that I'm talking about a lot of my family right
Mhm.
today, but
There's a lot of
we
ancestral, I feeling
yeah,
that energy in the air for the last one. There's a lot of, isn't there?
yeah.
Just one thing on that I've noticed, the more I heal or clear, it's like not only the trauma maybe of our lineage is can clear out, but also the gifts start to come in. It's like I feel they're saying it's time. If someone in the line will put their hand up and say, I'll sort of try and understand or embody or clear a lot of, the experiences, just exactly what you're describing and the traumas and all of that that's been stored, we can bring our power through to. That's like I feel my grandmother's power recently. She was born around this time of year, like on steroids at the moment. Because she was an Aries, and I have to be careful I don't overshoot sometimes because I'm saying to her, calm down, calm down. I know there's been maybe a few generations of not being able to express, but I need to regulate this. So
Yeah,
it's just, yeah, yeah, sorry. So it's just, yeah, it's how, yeah, it's obviously in the ethers. It feels like that right now for some reason. It's
yeah, I'm
time.
very, very connected. And the more I do this work and internal work, the more I can be connected. I'm very connected to my grandmas
Mm,
spiritually, and they are coming through me. And recently, I just, like these things are something that you just know. And this is something for all of you women who are listening, like the wisdom lies within our bodies, and it's in evident, like we don't need to hide it anymore. Like we have all the permission to just get it out there. And recently, so my hands, I do Reiki, like my hands have been awakened um since 2020. Like I remember doing, like during pandemic, we did everything when I was in Austin still, and all of our classes went online. And I remember just being in Tadasana pose, like in a yoga mat, standing, and I'm like, what's happening on my arms? Like,
wow.
and yeah, I mean, obviously it has evolved from that. But recently,
Mm.
when I was visiting in Finland and with my family, my left heel starts to give me signs. And I have also numerology, like 4 4, like I see this all the times since 2020 as well. Interesting that the 2020 has been a big year for all of us.
Mm. Yeah, however you look at it.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
exactly.
sure, for sure. There's a big shift, a big shift. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But recently, like there is this thing that happens in my left heel that is noticeable, and it happens so many times that I'm not making this shit up. Like
Mhm.
it's there. And there's just deeper knowing. It's this intuition that we women have. And when we start connecting things like, and what was just said, or what just happened, or there is a certain kind of confirmation or affirmation for what just happened, or yeah. So I'm encouraging all to be aware of that, because this is new. Like for me, like I
This
I
wasn't who you were, as you said, like always in the mind. So this really just came online for you 2020, or say starting in 2018 with your illness or your health issues.
yeah, and it just keeps on coming stronger, like, and obviously I have. been training and practicing a lot of connecting. Okay, I have this like feeling in my chest. Okay, what is the thought that I was just having? Or where is it actually, like what has happened? So this is
Mm,
like the puzzle that we get to create as when we are on the healing path. And somatics helps so much because it's really about being in tune with the wisdom of the body, being in tune what's happening in the body, and being able to connect that with the emotions and being able to have releases. And many women don't have outlets, and men especially, but we'll talk about only women,
mm.
don't have healthy outlet. Their outlet is a coffee, or their outlet is Netflix, or their outlet is shopping or eating. And I was very much a binge eater. Like that was my biggest way. Or overworking. You mentioned
Oh,
overworking.
no.
An easy way to
That
just
was one of
disappear.
my healthier ones.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
we all have, like, especially when we don't know how to be with certain emotions. Like
Mm,
I notice I'm a big on journaling. So immediately when I'm journaling something challenging, something emotional, all of a sudden I realize it's the almost like this time lapse, then I'm on my phone. So it's like very unconscious, like not wanting to go deeper, or like right when we are on the edge, the resistance comes, or we disassociate, meaning like we fly out, like go
yes.
somewhere else, focus somewhere else. And
Yes.
that's the work. That is exactly the work, how you can get deeper into those layers, what we talked
Yes.
about earlier.
Yeah, and can you talk about that? Just what you say there, we fly out. And I think many listeners will identify with it because this, I really, it's like as you were on the verge maybe of something, as you said, uncomfortable. And at the beginning of this work, so let's say, so I spent, so I just get this vision of like I was full to here. So most of us are carrying around from what you're explaining here is because sorry, now I'm jumping around here, but it's just often if I talk to people, they'll say, well, nothing terrible happened in my life. So most people, and women particularly, will dismiss it and go, I've nothing to complain about. Really, did you hear what happened to Mary and this happened? But not realizing that every experience of maybe not being seen or someone ignores you or someone says a sharp word or it can be, can't it, a combination of all of these things. And most of us, I think, if you're anywhere near, well, I'm in my 50s, grew up in societies where, yeah, like you said, in Finland, we didn't express this. So this is something that's really coming up for me now. Sorry, so I'm trying to articulate it. The movement of this energy that you're talking about in somatic work seems to be key, that no matter what else you do, we have to go into these experiences and release them. And the jumping out, as you said, I spent all my life jumping out because I think nobody tells us it's okay if you go in here, you won't die. And I needed someone to say that to me. And I think many people go, and you need someone who'll be with you, don't you? We need someone like you, what you do with your work to create a safe space. Because I know I've craved that all my life. I didn't even know what I was craving. But when I experienced it for the first time, where someone just held a space, it was like, oh my God, anything is possible when someone holds that space for you, isn't it? It's just, yeah, it is the most amazing thing. Can you talk a little bit about going through that with someone? So if someone is listening and going, oh my God, I have a lot of anxiety, I don't know what's going on, or they relate or identify, how would you go about supporting someone to start that journey?
Anxiety is a big one.
Mm,
uh, yeah, women tend to have a lot of that, and they don't have what we talked about, a healthy outlet around it that
mm,
just out.
jump
And
out.
the brain can be like a thing. I have a couple of clients who are really in their, the anxiety brain, meaning like the thoughts are, and then They are like the worst case scenario thoughts. And then, oh my God, this happened, this happened, this happened. And it goes in such a fast pace. By the way, here's a good suggestion for watching the Inside Out movie, Inside Out 2, especially. It's done by a psychologist, but there is a character that is an anxious part. And I'm also trained in internal family systems, which is basically an anxiety is a part of you. It's not you. And what you were sharing earlier, like, just like you noticed that there was this innate, the energy of like, oh, just being held and feeling like this love, like it is within all of us. Like we all deserve that, and we all have that as a center of ourselves. The calm, the loving, the compassionate, and the supported, the courageous, the confident version of ourselves. And then we create these different parts. For instance, anxious part that comes up, that takes over because it cannot trust the other. And that anxiety typically leads from a place from the past where you were not supported during that time when you needed it. And many times children develop trauma because they were left alone with that experience. Same thing for adults. Like if we are left alone with that experience and we do not know what to do with it, when the intensity comes in, then that's how these different parts are wakened up so that you can survive, so that you can cope. So like we are typically in this kind of work going into scenarios that have happened before. Like, what does this anxiety remind you of? Like, you have this pattern. Okay, I'm going like extremely, like, boss tells me, like, you did not do good work. And then, like, oh my God, that creates such an internal experience. The heart rate starts to come up. I have even certain women that I serve that, especially that comes during when they are eating, before eating or after eating. So they all have a root place. So what happens today here in your experience, it is rooting somehow from somewhere else because we are adults, but we still may have the nervous system of a child or nervous system of that version of ourselves that was in a very challenging situation and didn't have the capacity to find a way that would be like adult-like
Yes.
choice. So
Mm.
with this kind of work, we kind of go there, and what you shared earlier, like it was so relieving to hear that I can go there, that I'm not dying. And I actually have heard this from other women, like they feel like the fear of dying is so real. Like, no way I'm going there. So in this case, it's like a part of you that doesn't trust that there is another way. And with this kind of somatic work with nervous system regulation, we are really creating new neural pathways. So there's actually a different kind of choice. And then we can, when we are able to see that choice with somebody else, this doesn't typically happen just like, wait, we can figure it out on our own. And I was very resistant to this kind of
Mm.
work myself because I have been raised to like just push through it and figure it out on my own. But really, when we are working with the unconscious, like we need somebody to show us the way and hold our hand. It's like, yeah. And we want to release, especially when it comes to expression issues come up a lot, especially like if you haven't been just like able to say to your parents or caregivers or your teachers in those moments when you really wanted to share something. And yeah, this goes so, and it's very multi-layered, and yeah, very much what we use here is imagination, and we use play a lot as a
Mm.
tool, because we need to go to the childlike mindset also, and consciousness. And yeah, like when I really got into the root why I was like controlling and keeping myself small and just trying to hold on to things, I realized that it was a character from a cartoon, a Finnish cartoon called Movements. And now I have it visualized so much. It always comes here and it's like this naga 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 and a really complaining version. And then like really when I'm able to see again, this seeing, heard, being heard, understood, we can really do this healing work through our own internal family. And it's not the family you think of that, oh,
Yes.
I have an inner like mother and inner child. This goes way bigger. Like again, like I have clients who have over 10 characters in a circle and they all have their different, there's anger, there is anxiety, there is sadness, there is weak, and there is like yeah, many different characters.
Mm.
And
And
it's
yeah,
very important to be aware of them, and when they
yeah.
up and they still want to show up, but the fact that through this kind of work they don't need to make the decisions anymore for you. You don't have to make the decisions from the anxious place. You start
Mm.
the decisions from your higher self place, from the self energy that is calm, rooted, that is connected, that is in nervous system terms, we use the ventral energy, that
What was the
parasympathetic
name? Sorry. Oh, yeah.
ventral,
Ven
ventral.
Ventral energy. Yes, like you're in the parasympathetic, isn't? Yeah, that was
Yeah,
a whole new world for me. I never even knew it existed till I was about 48 or 49.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
in a yin yoga class after having gone through cancer and burned to a shred from everything. And I was in a yin yoga class. I didn't even know. It was at the end of another yoga class. And she put us in certain poses where all of the joints, with blocks and everything were held. And I was like, my whole, when you talk about being held, I was, what is this? I've never, maybe in the womb, I don't know. I have never, ever experienced. I mean, I'll never forget that moment till the day I die. Like it is, and I'm sure many women listening, I don't know if you have experienced it, but I mean, it is, it's like you have to, but I had to shake off an awful lot of layers had to come off before I'd even trust to go into a yin yoga class. You know what I mean? You know, so
Very well said, because
yeah,
it's like we have all these protection mechanisms. Like we have really built the walls like
yeah.
way,
And
and
understandably, not to judge. When you describe all that, and we were saying if someone just taking an example of a listener or many who may be in that anxious, I'm up to here, what can happen quite quickly? Like what would you say to even just get a bit of breathing space for yourself so that you're able then to go a bit deeper because, there is a process to this.
yeah, my first advice would be like, what can you do immediately, or like what is the next available time for you to get back into your body, to get back into soothing that energy, to calm down the energy of the anxiety. So there are different ways, breathing. We use in somatics, we use breathing, we use sound, we use movement. And, like yoga does already very much so something similar, but this goes into more with the consciousness. Many times you can just, again, like just turn off your brain,
Yes.
yoga class, and not necessarily consciously do certain things, but really like bring the awareness. Okay, I'm even just you sharing out loud, I'm noticing my heart rate is jumped up. I'm noticing tightness in my throat. I'm noticing a knot in my belly. And then just being with that and just breathing into it. Breath is like, we're all masters of it, but we just don't use it. So
Mm,
it's like, and with your like consciousness, with intention, just to be with, because again, when this is mimicking your nervous system still remembers a time when this anxiety like came up, like meaning like there was not necessarily anybody who could hold that for you. So you can be the healer for yourself and you can hold yourself in those moments. It's just a
mm,
matter of you choosing to do that. And many times we were like, like how, like, and
mm,
we all have a different blueprint that we have come with. For some people, anxiety feels like their legs are like extremely tingling, like it's a
mm.
different, these are just what I say that commonly are, but we are all different. And many women especially have lower back pain, and that's where the fight or flight starts. So that is the place of not feeling supported. So what you can do is to just even sit on the back of your chair and feel that lower back is supported. So there's immediately like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beau-
So the
Beautiful.
support is a big thing that is lacking during those times. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
we can
Yeah.
be the support, but we many times in order for us to remember of that support that we can have ourselves is comes by somebody mirroring it for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they would just sit with you while is it doing that? So they will sit just so that you can witness nearly. Is it what's
Yeah.
coming up through them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like um especially if women listening to this, like if you have an opportunity to go a women's circle or just even online, like what we are doing here, we are just in a connection, and like just to be witnessed and just
Mm,
to be with, because many times in energetics, like we are going against or we are going out. How would it be if we be with the experience? And it starts by being with another human being and then witnessing what you are. You don't necessarily need to even say anything, but just another one witnessing you, and you matter. Like you have, like you are so worthy and you so deserve to be witnessed, and you deserve the love that you have. That's our birthright. That's each and every one of us the birthright. So create the pathways for that,
mm.
because the
I-
world is so much better place when we heal ourselves. I have this quote that I say many times in yoga: when I heal, you heal, everybody heals. And it's like I see this so much um, in my surroundings. I can see this, what work I have been doing is now ripple affecting in my family. And the fact that I'm saying this out loud, that is such a blessing itself, that
Mm,
people are starting to, and family members are starting to be open and being, to me, having a conversation like I had a couple of weeks ago with my dad around the divorce, and me sharing my experience and sharing what I'm grateful for around it, and sharing what was hurtful and what was just my experience, and what was his experience and what he has been dealing with. Like that is like, wow.
that must have shifted a lot, even being able, as you said, to say, this is my experience, and him being able to say it and no blame, that maybe a
Yeah,
whole new perspective opens
exactly.
up in that, maybe I projected, when you even talk about the mind and the mindset in all of this, I'll give you just one example like that with a family member for me recently, where now this was all out of my own projection, out of my own wound. And I started saying to them, I know you think this of me, and I'm not, and I could hear myself, I could hear the child nearly trying to, and they just turned and said, I don't think that about you. And luckily I was able to go, okay, fair enough, that's on me. And I was able to take it back and go, oh my gosh, I have gone around with this perspective. Would you say, when you talked about the layers, I think it's so useful, interesting to go back, because people often say which comes first, the belief or the emotion, or, the thought or the emotion. And to me, what happened in that situation, I feel for me was something happened where when I was younger that caused me to believe something about myself. So an experience where I wasn't seen or heard, and so I started to believe something this unconsciously, and grew up with me all throughout my life. And here it was at the grand old age of, I'm now 57, saying this to someone in my family, and this light bulb going off, going, they don't think this at all. Like this is all going back to, so it seems that if the energy, am I right in saying this? If the energy is still pooling in the body and hasn't been expressed in some way, well, then, as you said, the nervous system is dysregulated. But then we start to create a whole world that a belief system that caters to that energy inside of us, which is all distorted, really. Is that sort
Yeah,
of, and then
yeah,
eventually it'll express in the body. But it's very interesting, isn't it? How those layers upon layers.
yeah, yeah. And the more think about like how many times you have thought about that,
Mhm.
like
Oh
how
my
this
God.
person perceives you. Yeah. So it's like thoughts over and over again create a belief. And then, especially when it's like we have an emotionally charged relationship, so it's a long
Mm.
relationship, we can really like start like really believing, and we are taking that in. It's like, oh, I'm not enough. Oh, I don't deserve to be. I'm not lovable. These are very like basic
Oh, mm.
limiting beliefs that we can take in. And just the fact that you were able to express that,
Well, that was a
and
new
yeah, yeah, and
in,
you
yeah,
as like expressing it out, and them it's like, no, like I don't actually believe that.
yeah.
And sounds like the way that their tone, how they even shared that, there was no question for you. You're like, yeah, well, oh wow,
Mm.
like
Yeah.
that's true. But they,
Major light bulb,
yeah,
but it took, you talk about being conscious as well. I suppose it does take that in our lives. We can go around, which I suppose it's like bringing more of the making more of the unconscious conscious, really, isn't it? Is where our power is. If
yeah,
we're being run by that, life can be, and that's what it sounds like with you when you're talking about coming back into the center. You're coming back into that centered, grounded place where all of these layers, they may be there, but they're not running the show, really, I suppose.
exactly, exactly. Very, very well put. Like in the show, they can still influence, because the all of these parts, all of these, they still want to be involved, but they are no longer making decision. They are no longer driving the car. And I'm sharing about this playfulness and this weird stuff that this somatic work that I do. So throughout the work that you find your anxious part, or you find um, you know, the anger part, and that have made the decisions, or like the
Mm.
inner child that was believing in all of those facts that about that other people think of you. So they actually create them as a picture, or they can do a drawing of them, and they drive the car with them. So literally they take the paper, put it on the passenger seat and or on the back seat, and
Mm.
you're having a relationship, but they are not driving the car. You are driving the car. And this actually came up from one of my clients who had really, really dysregulated nervous system. And immediately when she tried to get to do something, she was in that kind of stage that she couldn't even drive a car from her home to her work. So this is the level of intensity that was going on. So there was a very, very strong part that was like taking over. And it came up every time she tried to drive the car. So we eventually, and many times these energies are so in us, like these beliefs, they are so, we have very well trained them to be as if they are us. So what you do with this work is to create more space with them so you can actually have a conversation with them and where they're coming from and when did they come to your life and so forth. And yeah, now she's driving her car into many, many different places. But yeah, this can be as so what you might be, if you're listening and you might be having these kind of weird experiences, just like you are not capable of driving a car, just know that it's not weird. It's not, it's just there is a dysregulation in the body. There is some part that is taking over that believes that this is a better way, even though your adult mind would think and knows that this is nonsense, but because the body is running the show.
The body is running the show.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is, isn't it? It's like it's been a big and the body is the wisdom. I think you mentioned that earlier, the wisdom of the body, the intelligence of the body. It's really come up for me recently in many ways, but I talk about them because it's something I'm very passionate about right now is the essential oils that I use because I use them naturally to support myself through something. And it's like now that I've started using them, I'm actually feeling my body. I suppose this might be another part of it as well. If you've such a backlog, I was so anesthetized or numbed for years and through alcohol and different things. Just because there was too much there. There was just too much. I couldn't go there. So I get it. I get it when I meet people like that and I feel for them because I can remember it. And it was sort of but now I'm in a place where I want to feel it's ironic. I never wanted to feel. Now I want to feel everything. I don't care. Take me there because and I if you're listening, it's that might sound a crazy thing to say, but in as you move through this in a very supported way and gradually there is a way like what Vera does, you start, I think what happens is you start to find the power. When you talk about getting into the center, you have the physical, the mental, the emotional, and then the spiritual. So for someone who may not be spiritually oriented or how would you describe that to someone who maybe needs other words or I don't know, what do you access when you do this work? Because it's very painful to do unless you know there.
Yeah. You access your intuition.
Yeah,
You access your wisdom and the knower, like what I shared earlier. I just know things. I don't have an
that's
explanation for things. And I sometimes don't know where I pull this stuff. And I see this a lot in yoga classes. Like, where's the channeling? I guess you could call it channeling. I'm like,
mm,
what is
mm,
coming? And then people would come after yoga class, like, when you said that, like, oh my God, that was the pivotal moment. And I'm like, okay, wow. And so that's it. It says you are able to like trust what's coming up. And I'm so like, even just doing a smoothie. So I'm like, oh, I need to put ginger. So then I'm going to get a ginger. So it can be just like this very
mm,
nuances. And when you start following that, 2022, now that we talk about years, that's what I started to do, like in the yoga classes. That was my creative zone, kind of. I could start playing with it. And I'm like, wow, life gets so much easier. That's one thing that you notice. Life gets
mm,
easier.
mm.
Celine, you
Yeah.
share so much around your podcast. It just comes, and these people are just coming to you. Like
Mm,
you just know and you just go with it.
mm. It is, it's miraculous. Thank you for saying that, Vera, because that is, I was saying that to someone recently. I didn't plan to start a podcast. It was another woman. There are all these women who just came into my life and have been sort of guiding me and taking me by the hand. It really has become that. I'm not, yes, I have to use my mind to organize things, but exactly that. I can hear something and go, okay, I'll talk to them then. Or okay, I'll contact them. It's like, as some said, you wake up and you just follow instructions. That's what I do. I just get a feeling. And it's
Yeah.
like going around, like you said, put ginger in this, do that. And life becomes such a whole. And that brings me into, which I'd like us to talk a bit about as well on the podcast, is where this can go in terms of, okay, as a woman accessing your own feminine wisdom, the true, what is we hear a lot about the divine feminine and then the masculine and where it can go in terms of relationship and the masculine and feminine within ourselves and then how that shows up, in relationship. And I heard a beautiful Vera has a beautiful podcast called Mariposa, and I listened to, so do check it out. I listened to an episode with her and her husband, and I was like, wow. It was just fabulous. It was like divine union is the word I use. But yeah, so let's just pedal back a bit to, as you were talking about the intuition, the wisdom, the feminine knowing. So where does that sort of, yeah. So what's being unveiled there? We're on
Yeah.
this journey.
Yeah, yeah, the divine feminine. So all of us listeners, like we have the sacred union within us. So the divine feminine and the masculine. And many times we are like this world that we live in right now is very toxic masculine, overdoing things, like very controlling, very judgmental, very closed, very defensive, very rigid, obsessive, this kind of energy.
I like,
And
sorry, no, I love that you, I wouldn't say qualified, explained it in that way because sometimes I think, oh, I don't want to go off on another thing, but just it's great that you said that starting because sometimes I feel people are almost nearly like as if it's attacking men and, men are being very toxic. Well, that's not my feeling, I mean, at all. But yeah, so you're talking really about the energies of the masculine energies, really, I suppose, isn't it? Yeah.
And I love and encourage the listeners to listen to this from a lens. How is that masculine showing up inside of you? Because
Mm.
the truth is that the world is just a reflection of you. So where are you controlling, overworking, judgmental, closed, defensive, rigid, obsessive, abusive? Um, and then the healthy side of masculine is more, it's grounded, it's supportive, it's almost like this container, so
That's what I
it's
always think of.
a lot
Yeah.
of organization, structure, frame. It's driven, it's helpful, it has healthy boundaries. So many times when we are in the toxic feminine, which many women don't, that we lack boundaries. We are in the people pleasing, we are self-sacrificing, we are not, we are over giving. So that's very toxic masculine trait. But then we have very challenging time to receive. So we're like,
Mm.
that's a very, so in order
Would you
for
call that feminine, or sorry, would you call that when you say we have difficulty in receiving? That's obviously toxic, if you want to call the word toxic or whatever, distorted, whatever, feminine. Is that, yeah, not, yeah, just
our,
in,
and then when you feel anxious, overwhelmed, that's considered more in the um, toxic feminine. You are non-committal, you are undependable or flaky. That kind of energy is very much so like, oh, yeah, okay.
mm.
So let's talk more about the healthy or the
Yes,
divine versions. So
yes. That's
um,
really coming alive on the planet. Can feel it, can't you? Yeah.
both feminine energy that is rising. And so the feminine is the being. It's not the doing. Masculine is the doing. Feminine is the being. So even just me saying being, my back goes towards to the back of my seat, like, okay, I can be. That's the yin energy. So we talk in yoga, they call yin and yang. Yang is the masculine, the sun energy. Yin is the feminine, the moon energy. So it's receptive. It is compassionate. It's emotionally expressive. Hear me, ladies.
Healthy, emotionally expressive.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not pointing the
Not
finger.
screaming and roaring.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
And it's generous, it's sensual, it's passionate, it's creative. So this creation, and you shared about in your, was it in a podcast where you shared like you almost were like with creative artists and stuff like
mm,
that, you had like such a blockage around them. So I
yeah, like
and
oh my, yeah. I if I could be that, I just yeah, beautiful.
many women actually like what I have noticed and have there's almost like a shame around drawing or this creative side in schools.
Mm,
So many women
mm,
think that they cannot draw or they cannot express
yes,
themselves through art. Um, and children know art before they can read or like fully speak. So this is like our innate power to
yeah.
be creative and being that feminine is very connection oriented. It's very abundant. It can be very messy. It's almost like think about like the masculine is the container and the feminine is inside of it, like the termite,
Mm,
but not the anxious way. It's more
yes.
like, oh, I need to do this. Oh, a creative zone here. Oh, the abundance of everything. Like you can just be all of that. And we
Mm,
need you to awaken that. And that
yes.
is one of the biggest things I have noticed, especially I also do full moon circles. So women only.
Do you do
That,
them online, Vera? You do, don't you?
yeah.
Yes. I remember I was going to join one once and I don't know what happened. But
Yeah.
could have been the
Yeah.
time zone, I'm not sure. But
Yeah, I was born on a full moon, so I have a very deep connection. I'm also Cancer moon.
mm,
So yeah, this is like my favorite time of the month. And I created my chakra healing journal in 3 full moons, and that was it. Talking about creative zone, talking
yeah.
about the theme in the yin energy. But really like what I notice in these circles, how you can awaken this, the most simplest ways is to dance.
Mm,
And if
yes.
you dance with
Okay.
other women, that's even better. But you just getting into your body, and I have a background. Zumba was my baby. Like I'm a huge Zumba. I started my fitness career with Zumba,
Oh,
and
wow.
is my favorite thing. And because you just needed to be silly, and
Yeah.
everybody like you didn't need to express anything with words. And go figure, because I had so many struggles with expressing myself through words, but I always been in the body. Now it's just in a deeper layers. Now it's not necessarily just volleyball or structured dance moves,
Mm,
you getting into your body and how it feels. Sometimes the sounds come out, and it's really fun, and the energy shifts every single time. Everybody's so like laughing. After that, when we come back to the circle, it's just amazing, like what that can do. And research actually backs it up. That just you doing 2 minutes can change your mood.
isn't that amazing? Just when you say the anxiety, another thing that comes to mind just on that with the dance, and it was a breathwork practice I did, and he used to talk about dogs, when dogs got into a fight and they shake it off. You just
Right
jump
there.
up and shake. So it's another good way in a really anxious moment. I've done that sometimes just to literally just shake, shake, shake. And
Yeah.
I always just think of the dogs going, yeah, they know better than us. They're in their bodies. They need to get all this stress out of that interaction. And then they let it go and they move on. They're not
Yeah.
probably telling stories to other dogs about what the do other dog.
Yeah.
Guess
And
what that
telling
dog did to me last week or last year? They're on to something else. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that,
Beautiful. Mm.
that shaking is actually a somatic movement practice.
What is?
So you have already done somatics.
Okay, the shaking. Yeah, that's amazing. It's amazing. I find it brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. When you have a lot
Just
of energy.
like with your, you can even shake with the horse lips, with your,
Oh,
that is one, like there's so many different ways. Just getting into your body and be playful, be the 5-year-old, letting that, like she wants to play and she's not quiet, like she wants
yeah.
to voice herself out.
Yeah. So your true essence really starts to come alive, doesn't it? It's just like when you peel back all of what you're saying, Vera, is like when you just get past, it's like what you described at the beginning. The physical may present a sort of a roadblock at some point. It might give you a number of small ones, like and then a major roadblock. And it's like saying you're not going further until you peel off these layers. You're just not going further. And you have to do it. But what comes out, like that's and I'll just share it because I think when we share these things, and if you're in that mode of struggling, it sort of can help you see there is light at the end of the tunnel. Because
Yeah.
I've often said there are days, I don't want to be really morbid, but there were times I did not want to wake up in my life. That is how miserable I was. So I know if I can come back from that, and I know I'm sure there are others, anything is possible. And then you start to embody that was the feminine I craved all my life. I was in that toxic or whatever words you want to use, distorted masculine, like because that's the society we were brought up in. So it's not a judgment. So you say then, sorry, you're describing the feminine, but we also have to have that container within ourselves as well, because that's what I find I'm finding now. I have to find the feminine. And then it's like, okay, if I stayed in that chaos all the time without structure and containment, I God knows where I'd be. But so we have to also bring that into ourselves before we even, well, not say before, but ideally before we enter into a relationship with someone. It doesn't mean you can be in relationship, but I'm just meaning if you are single, it's a good
Yeah,
place to
just
be, isn't
finding
it?
that balance. And it comes to every single day life. Like if you have couple of how I create my days is like mornings are to myself and then just couple of pointers, obviously calls
Mm.
can create the structure. And then during the rest of the time, I'm like, I want to dance for a little bit. Came to my mind, or like, hey, I want to eat this. I want to go for a walk, like just being in that. And I'm very practical, so really like how can you create this? And it starts really like the shifts happen in these small choices of life. You don't have, like think about from a scale from 1 to 10, like it says 1 to 2 is the like level of choice, like, oh, do I want to eat pasta or potatoes tonight? Like, what do I feel like eating? So like be
Yeah.
playful and just allowing yourself to test it out. Like there's
Yes.
no right or wrong way to do this. This is literally you just finding new ways to be with yourself and seeing what works or what doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it's
Sort
not,
of
it's
opens up in layer, I found, doesn't it? It's sort of, it's not that you're being tested, but it's almost a little bit, it's like a child with a toy. You'd rather giving you the whole toy box, play with one and
yeah,
then sort of, oh, okay. And then
yeah,
it's,
like the
that's how I
loaded.
find, doesn't it? It's the way life does. It unfolds like if this infinite nature that we are, it is an infinite unfolding. So
Yeah.
it's beautiful once you've the structure. And when you talk about the masculine or just because I was very interested in it, I'm sure other women listening will be as well. When you talked about it from the perspective of a male, just even when you look at relationships in general now in the world, if we, the feminine, are out of balance in our own world, that can impact on the types of relationships as well we can have too. So if you wouldn't mind sharing just whatever, even in terms of your own relationship or what you've come to know about relationships and men,
Yeah.
where you're at.
Well, I already shared that I was very in the toxic masculine. So
Mm,
a couple of times that I heard from my partner saying, if you want to be the masculine of this relationship, it's not in this relationship.
When you
But
said that, sorry, that was just like, whoa. That's, yeah.
yeah,
But it's not a beautiful thing to hear a man say. Sorry, that just sounds very, I would call divine masculine. You know, it's in this. Can you put words on then what you would call divine masculine as opposed to, let's say, toxic or unhealthy masculine?
yeah. Like I said, it's grounded, it's supportive,
Yes,
it
yes,
creates a
yeah,
healthy container and the healthy boundaries,
yeah,
and
okay.
it's very devoted. So, and divine masculine is very devoted for the feminine and to their wisdom, and it's very committed. It's not the flaky energy, it's committed,
Yes, you'd say that.
it's
Yeah.
organized, and it's very purpose driven. And yeah, but I noticed when I was in that situation of toxic masculine, like I didn't even know, I didn't have any female friends necessarily, who I could actually talk about emotional stuff, because I didn't even, I remember I went to the somatic coach and I'm like, give me a list of emotions because I have no idea. I can only say that I am excited or that I'm sad. I don't know anything else. I'm anxious.
Mm.
Like those are the words that I know of. But can you please give me uh so we that's the basics that we started from. Like I
But
am
it's
sure
understandable. It's understandable. I mean, I get it. Yeah, that's the same. Yeah.
when we are really um grown up in a place where there's no emotional interaction, like interactions, yes. So we all know the emotions. It's not about that you don't know the emotions. It's just we don't have any examples, or we haven't verbalized them, or it has been pushed underneath the rug. Like when those kind of situations. I remember many conversations when things came up and people started talking about weather, and somebody's having an experience, you can clearly see somebody's extremely angry or somebody's crying, but that is not attended to, and it's attended into like just again paradigm shift. So it comes back down to that you just connecting with yourself, and like we talked about dancing already, but that was my practice, how I got into divine feminine practices, also opening up the hips stores a lot of emotions in the hips. So you just opening the hips, even the, hey, hips don't lie, Shakira knew what I'm talking about. Like you just opening up the hips in circles. That's very basic stuff, but you just moving the energy. And the big thing is like, even yoga talks about this, like when emotions, when things are still in our system and the beliefs, like they create blockage in that energy pathway. And so the energy is not able to flow. The prana, the chi is not able to flow.
Mm.
So movement is a powerful way for you to just open yourself up to different possibilities, because there's infinite possibilities. This is so high-tech universe that we live in that our consciousness that cannot even comprehend. So you trying to lock in just into the box that you know of, that, and I have been there myself, like trying to resist to the end, and resistance is part of just any change. Really like being in relationship with yourself first, finding the healthier ways to make choices so you can have that communion inside of you, and then you can actually start trusting that that is available in your partner, because without you having that relationship with yourself, you cannot actually fully see the other person, how they are even showing and demonstrating, and you really feeling how they are demonstrating the, in this case, like um if we're looking for a masculine, like really like it is wonderful, like when you can experience it also from external. Again, we are we are attracting who we are, not attracting
Yes.
who we want. So
Yeah. Look at,
really,
they always say, isn't it? Look at the movie of your life and you'll get a good idea of, well, I
yeah,
always,
yeah,
it's
yeah. So
what's going on inside.
yeah, yeah. So then that's why we are also many times in the toxic masculine, because we cannot trust the masculine that has been demonstrated for us. So we like think about the males that was in your life and in your upbringing and what they demonstrated being around women. So that is exactly that you are most likely going to be behaving. Your behavior comes from that place because
Okay.
this behavior comes from beliefs, you know. So what you are believing, that is true. And many times we are taking in, and maybe there wasn't even male figure. So it's like this, like the unknown. And then there was a very much toxic masculine mom, possibly because she needed to take over the masculine role and the
Mhm.
feminine role. So this is very complex, but it really goes down into like you looking at the patterns that you are having, and then what was the blueprint, the examples from the outside that you took in also.
Mm. And sort of peeling those back. And just rather than it seem, not that we're, saying, there's masculine, there may have been women missing out of men's life as well, so in terms of where we're going in relationships, what would be how would you describe, maybe from your own experience or just where we're moving to? Because in terms of the masculine and feminine, how would you see that or would like to see it? It's nice to see how we envision how that might look um, in the
Yeah,
future.
yeah. Well, I know it's possible. So it has been
Mhm.
proven in my own relationship. So I know it's possible for anybody. Um, and yeah, go and listen to the podcast episode with my partner if you are interested in this topic, because our backgrounds are very like, so if we can make it work, like anybody can make
Yeah,
it work.
yeah. Well, it's interesting as well, Vera. You were in relationship before a lot of this started to happen as well. So it's not. I'm not saying, oh my God, you have to go run off and leave the person you're with if you're with someone or anything like that. But it's just amazing. It's a real testament to both of you that when this started to happen, would you say it started to happen in you first, or like you said, he was studying functional medicine, so there was something. He obviously was quite conscious as well, and on this
Definitely
path.
way more conscious than I was when we
Mm,
started. And I am so grateful for like just all the ways that he was and is, and like how he has also led the relationship. And but there has been also times like we I have tried to lead the relationship and it just doesn't work.
uh-huh.
Yeah, but I really the feminine is rising, and that is the invitation for every woman to really like where we possibly grew up in and were born in, like the feminine was possibly shut down, and we needed to go with the masculine ways, and that doesn't work anymore. Like we will see more and more divorces happen, we can see more illnesses happening when we are not, remember, like feminine energy is emotionally expressive, it's compassionate, and it's receptive. It's not the over giving one, it's not the people pleasing one. It is like you to receive that, and you can claim that. Many women feel like they need a permission, or like that they cannot do it, but anybody, all the other women can do it. It's really like you can do it and you deserve it. It's your birthright to be the feminine. If you decide to be the feminine in the relationship, like there
Mm,
can
yeah.
be, but really to awaken that is your the mission that I invite people into. And I trust the universe, I trust the higher power, that when we are in that healthy place, the divine place inside of ourselves, it also happens outside of us. And when we are not, then there's something we can turn internally. Like, like when we're pointing a finger, there is one point, one finger into the person, three fingers towards yourself, and one towards higher power. So it's about yourself more, like it's what is there. And we get the blessing after we get the lesson. And the lesson, having to face yourself with the lesson, I know it's so hard. It's so challenging. It is awful. And that's why there's a lot of support, and surround yourself with people that are seeing you, hearing you, understanding you, what you are going through, because the self-realization journey, the healing journey can get so lonesome, can get so lonely. And we can feel that we are the only ones, but no. Like all of us, we, in different contexts, we feel the same things, and not necessarily always in the same magnitude, but everybody can still like hold the torch for you as you're going through that. So we are all here for each other.
We are all just walking each other home, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ram Dass says that. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Thank you, Vera. I think we'll draw to a close on such beautiful, wise words. Thank you. And if you are going, as Vera said, on that journey now, or just listening to this and something is being shaken in you, there never really has been a better time to be starting this journey if you haven't, or if you're just at the early stages, because so many more women and men are really waking up to, I suppose, what's available. I just say that word, that there's more available than maybe you have believed, and particularly when you're laden down with maybe anxiety and all of these layers that Vera has pointed out from, and the physical is where it'll sort of show up, isn't it? And you'll get this. So if that is showing up, it's difficult, but it will ultimately be a blessing. And that might sound a little trite and trivial. I say it because I've been there, and I only say it because I've been there, and I know that from my perspective. And I think, Vera, you're sharing the same as well. Everything is connected, isn't it? Nothing is happening in isolation or random or in one big intelligence universe.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for having me. And I really hope that this podcast will reach your podcast, Wild Woman podcast, will reach so many. Like, you have such a beautiful, expansive heart, and just like so down to earth and sharing from your heart. Like, people can feel that. So thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much. And Vera, if people want to get in touch with you, because I know you've lots of exciting things happening, would you just maybe want to mention a couple of them first? And then I'll add all of Vera's contact details and how you can get in touch with her and the link to her podcast. Because can I just ask you, I always do this at the end and I say I'm signing off. Why did you call it Mariposa? That was on my mind, Mariposa
Yeah.
podcast.
Well, that was a spiritual experience. That is another podcast episode. I
Okay.
have my own, but it
Yeah.
came to me very vividly in a meditation. Um, the chakras lit up as a core of the mariposa, then the divine feminine, divine masculine as a wings, and then the antennas, the intuition came. And I'm like, wow, like it was this easy. Like I
Mm.
teach everything through this lens, through chakras, through divine feminine, masculine, and the intuition. So yeah, that was very powerful. And then I realized that mariposas, so butterflies, grow everywhere.
Butterfly, didn't it? Okay.
The butterflies don't see their own beauty. Did you know that the butterflies don't see their own beauty, but everybody else sees their beauty? They mean freedom, hope, transformation, rebirth. So all of these things, and it's a metamorphosis. It's going through these stages of life. So that was such a huge reflection of what I also want to bring in and what I believe um, in in my work and in what this universe is about. And yeah, that's how it became mariposa. That's
Oh,
how
that's
it.
so beautiful. It's so beautiful. It just makes me feel, for everyone listening, you're here to become the butterfly and you have to go through, we have to go through all of these stages. There's no shortcuts. It is, yeah, we're here to become the butterfly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mariposa. That's such a beautiful,
Yeah.
and that's the gift, what you've just described, that came to you in a meditation. That's what happens when you drop into your feminine, isn't it? That's what's possible. Like this is the magic that you're describing. I'm experiencing it, and I hadn't put words in it like that. It just life becomes a much more flowing, playful, more easy. You still have stuff, we all do, but you're coming at it from a different place. It's like who's in the driving seat again? Sorry, I could go on about this topic forever because like I'm going to start. I always do that wind down and then wind up again. The chaotic feminine is taking over. I need to bring some masculine structure in and bring an end.
Yeah. There you go.
I was reminded by this by another guest recently. It was very funny, and I went, "Oh, there's something very nicely." She was saying, "Do you have a time limit?" And I said, "Well, sometimes." I said, "I probably need to get better at that because I've flowed sometimes too long. Not too long, but yeah." So we're
But
always learning, coming into balance. It's a movable feast. Um, so thank you so much, Veera. You have retreats. Sorry, I did want to mention that you've two retreats, don't you, coming up in Costa Rica, and you've one in Ireland as well.
I have one in Ireland too. Yeah, our mutual friend Elaine,
Beautiful, Elaine. Yeah.
that who has been also in this podcast.
Yes.
So yeah, we do coaching, we do these kind of ceremonies together, as well as then a bigger ceremony. It's more like a in-person retreat that is coming here in Costa Rica in May 2025, and then October 25 is also in Ireland, and more are in already in the planning, and that is also like divine unfolding, like
Yes.
something huge that we are just going with it, because there is this energy of like just the flow and ease, and it's just like almost like universe has brought us together. So I'm very grateful for that. And yeah, I do somatic private coaching, as well as I have the podcast, and then I do occasionally yoga online, and I do like series, Mariposa Method series, for instance. And
Wow.
yeah, I'm streaming them here from my home from Costa Rica, or the yoga shala that I talked about. The intuition came through, and yeah, that's like my creative zone. And then these full moon ceremonies. So yeah, we have a full moon in Libra coming up, and
Mm.
interesting. We talk about relationships, because this is really about the
Yes.
relationships and harmony.
Yes.
So it
Yes.
always is in divine timing, and just for us to create the perspective of being in connection with all of this. And yeah, these what we talked about in the start, intentional spaces, are a really, really big passion of mine, especially bringing women together, and hopefully um, um, the listeners can create an experience of that for themselves in their surroundings, or online, or in, obviously, like, welcome also to the retreats and being in further connection. And I'm also open for anybody who is, you can find me on Instagram or Facebook, just DM me. And yeah, you don't talk to robot, you talk to me.
Yeah,
So yeah, hard,
I think we
hard
know.
conversations.
I know. It's hard to know sometimes, but I think, well, I think hopefully we can all identify when something has soul or not. It's a little
Yeah,
part of it. So
yeah.
thank you, Vera. Thank you,
Thank you so much.
everyone, for listening. Such a beautiful, beautiful time. And yeah, all of Vera's contact details will be in the links. Well, as you're watching it, it will be wherever you're watching it. But just if you are new to my channel, the podcast goes out on Substack, on Spotify, and on YouTube. And if you enjoy it, I'd love if you shared and subscribed. I forget to say it, but I just really, just more inspiring voices of women telling their stories, coming into this sacred space. I just really want to help spread those out into the world for those of you who are listening, so more of us can rise into the divine feminine and become the butterfly. that was
Yeah.
to be the
Much.
Mariposa.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
Thank
Veera.
you.
Take care until the next time. Much thanks. Thank you.